Okay, my name is Alex, and the lesson I'm going to teach today is how to make a fall centerpiece using a mason jar. The materials that you need are a mason jar, chalkboard paint, you can get black or white, acrylic paint, whatever color that you'd like, sandpaper, paint brushes, something to put your paint in. This is optional. It's a Mod Podge matte finishing spray to add at the end. You don't really have to have it, but it's just nice. And then flowers or whatever you'd like to put in your centerpiece at the end. All of these materials I got from Walmart, so that's where you could find them. The first step is basically to pick out a jar. You can use any kind of mason jar or any glass vase that you want as well. I usually wash the glass at first, so it's all nice and clean before I paint it. Then the first step, or the second step that you have to do is paint with the chalkboard paint. So I chose to use black because I like the letters to show up black underneath. So use black paint. And when you're painting this on, you want it to be thin layers. You want to cover the jar completely, but you don't want it to be thick or it'll bubble up and crack. I always paint completely around. It's not going to be perfect at first. You're going to see darker spots in places and lighter spots in other places, and that's why we usually do a second coat. I don't do this full ring. I just kind of do like half around like that. I don't paint the bottom until the very end, so I can spin it around like that. You don't need very much of this. So like I said, now that I've finished spinning it around, I do paint the bottom. So then when you have the first coat of the chalkboard paint on, just set that and let that dry for probably about 15 minutes. Okay, so for the third step in the process, we're gonna touch up the chalkboard paint. After this first layer was dry, I'm gonna go through again and add another small layer. Doesn't need to be a lot, but you'll see some spots that aren't as dark, or I like to go through and make sure it's even. Also, you don't want to have a lot of extra paint near the wording on the jars because it will bubble up and it kind of drips down, so it all kind of gets stuck by the letters. So make sure it's not too thick there. And we can set it back down. Touch up the bottom if there's any areas. And then we're gonna let that coat dry. The next step that you have to do after your chalkboard paint is completely dry and you have it all covered is you need to take your acrylic paint. You can choose whatever color you want. I'm choosing red just because it goes with my other fall pieces that I've made. So then we just paint over it, just like normal. This may take a couple coats. This looks a little lighter than previous ones I've done, so this might take even more than 2 coats. Like I said earlier, you don't want it to get very thick around the lettering. Go around the rim. You can still see black as of right now, but we have multiple coats to do, so. So it's never going to be perfect. I could paint at it forever and it's never going to be perfect. And now we let this coat dry. Okay, so after you've painted the jar completely, I have added an extra couple coats here. I didn't record that, but usually you'll need to apply more than 1 coat. I did about 3 coats on this one and it's evenly covered now. So the next step is to sand your jar with sandpaper. Now there's no really right way to do this because if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. I just do it because it gives it an old rustic look to it, and that's what I like about it. I always sand over the words first, and by doing this, You don't need to do it very hard. It's pretty easy to sand off. By sanding over the ridges of the lettering, it takes off the top colored coat, and then it shows your dark lettering. You could zoom in a little bit. That'll just come towards me. See, you can see the lettering is dark, and now it's showing the chalkboard paint through it. So I'm gonna sand a little more here. You can kind of sand however much you want. You can do all the lines, any ridges, or you don't have to. And if you make a mistake and something comes off that you didn't really intend to, it doesn't really matter. By sanding it, it makes it look older. See, like a couple chunks of my paint came off, but I'm trying to give it an old and rustic look, so it really doesn't matter. So after you go over the lettering, you can keep doing it for a while if you'd like, but it's all up to you. I also sometimes sand just in other places just to kind of make it look worn out, just wherever you want, really. So I could keep going on for a long time sanding. But after you finish doing that, however much you'd like, then you are almost finished. You put the lid on. I'm not going to show this in the video, but this is optional. It's a Mod Podge matte finishing spray. If you decide to do this, it kind of just gives it a clear coat on the top. And if you do this, you need to do it outside, I recommend, or it needs to be in a well-ventilated area because it's very strong. So yeah, I've done this on most of my pieces, and I usually spray it outside, and it just kind of gives it a little shiny coat on top. So, and then after you do that, you basically just add whatever flowers or whatever you'd like. I bought some fall flowers and pieces from Walmart to add to it. And basically that is your finished piece. I wanted to show a couple more pieces that I have done. These are some soap jars that I've made out of mason jars doing the same way. And these are a few of my other fall pieces that I also made. Yep, get all those. And that is how you make a fall centerpiece for the table. Thank you for watching.